What can survive in space? Well, people can, if they have an excellent spacesuit. Spacesuits are, shall we say, kind of a needed item in the vacuum of space. Without one, you'll have to stay inside the spaceship or modular dwelling on the Moon or Mars. Currently, NASA has only several older spacesuits ready for use outside the spacecraft, like the International Space Station. NASA's Artemis mission to the Moon is planning to have new suits designed for both men and women. It has a $250 million budget for them. These new suits are much less bulky than the older ones and much more fashionable. But what other creatures besides people can live in space? 3 named animals were sent into space, and they all came home safely. Does that qualify? 2 dogs, Belka and Strelka, spent a day inside a Russian spacecraft in 1960 and became media stars upon their return. The USA launched a chimp named Ham on a 16-minute ride into space. Space starts 62 miles above the ocean level and only takes a rocket a few minutes to get there. Ham, who wore a spacesuit, performed all his button-pushing tasks admirably and is honored in the International Space Hall of Fame in Alamogordo, New Mexico. But tardigrades can actually live in space. Tardigrades, or water bears as they are often called, are brown and look like teeny tiny grizzly bears, and are one of the most miniature animals with legs. They have 8 of them. Most species of tardigrades have no eyes, but some do. It's possible to see water bears with a good magnifying glass, since they average about a ½ millimeter in size. Sprinkle a little water on moss and they'll come out. They can walk about 1 body length per second and run at about 2 body lengths per second. Water bear eggs are easier to spot because they're bright white. The European Space Agency took water bears to the International Space Station and left them outside for 10 days. They survived. They still survived with no air, water, almost a perfect vacuum, harmful solar radiation, extreme cold, and heat. Well, that doesn't sound very fun, does it? In extreme conditions, water bears rely on their exoskeleton, or tun, to protect themselves. In laboratory tests, this exoskeleton could withstand immense pressure at over 87,000 pounds per square inch. That's quite a spacesuit they got. Water bears have even been frozen solid for 30 years, and when warmed up, the water bears revived and were still able to reproduce. As we search for life in space, as we explore Mars, these types of extreme life forms become essential to understand. If water bears can survive literally every environmental condition, can we conclude that life is everywhere in space? Extremophiles are life forms living in extreme conditions, such as other planets might have. Mobile Cave in the country of Romania is one such place that could just well be on another planet. All life on Earth, on the surface of the Earth, is carbon-based. It means that carbon atoms act much like a universal Lego block, to which hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen atoms connect to form the molecules that the cells of living organisms are made of. But not in Mobile Cave. Mobile Cave was sealed off at least 2.5 million years ago. The water that percolates up through limestone rock has formed a lake in the cave, a mix of hydrogen sulfide, poisonous and corrosive, and ammonia. What could live in this toxic soup? Well, sulfur-based life forms. An entire ecological system without light or photosynthesis exists inside Mobile Cave. The food chain is built on chemosynthesis, microorganisms eating sulfur-based chemicals. 33 species of sulfur-based creatures were found living in the hostile environment of Mobile Cave. Shrimp, scorpions, centipedes, snails, etc., etc. Mobile Cave is an alien world deep underground full of sulfur-based life forms. If creatures like this exist in Mobile Cave on Earth, what can we expect to find living in outer space? Bacteria. Bacteria can live in outer space, and fungi too. Bacteria form the base of the food chain, and bacteria have been proven to be able to live in outer space. In the 1980s, cosmonauts on the Mir space station complained that something was growing outside the station's windows and blocking their view of Earth. It turned out, upon inspection, to be bacteria and fungus, or fungi. The windows, made of quartz, were being damaged and weakened by what was growing on the surface. Fungi were also found to be eating copper on some of the cables. Mold was found growing in some places on the outside of Mir. The space station was under attack by microorganisms. Scientists took this very seriously and began to investigate. It seems that in a sterile environment such as space, bacteria come out of their hiding places when no other microorganisms are around. Cosmic radiation may even help them mutate and adapt to the space environment. The bacteria seem to be growing even faster in space than on Earth. Years later, the United States decided to run a bacterial experiment on the International Space Station. They coated rocks with various bacteria and put them outside the space station. Some bacteria did not survive the harsh conditions of space, but many did. One strain called OU-20 survived for over a year and a half outside the ISS. Japan also did a bacterial experiment on the International Space Station. Outside the Japanese Kibo module, Kibo's robotic arm placed 3 panels with the bacteria Deinococcus radiodurans, or D. radiodurans for short. It survived outside in space for 3 years. The lead scientists of the Japanese experiment calculated that the bacteria could live as long as 8 years in space. That's long enough to make a journey to Mars and back 4 times. Now, this raises a couple of interesting questions. Could life have come to Earth from Mars in a space rock? And, more pointedly, could an infectious bacteria come to Earth in a space rock? Suddenly, what had only been considered in science fiction books and movies was now a subject of intense scientific scrutiny. And then came the Mars meteor. Antarctica is the best place to find meteors because it's covered by ice. The ice in the Allen Hills regions of Antarctica is locked in place by the configuration of the surrounding mountain. The ice here sublimes. That means the ice evaporates, never becoming liquid but turning directly into vapor. As the ice in the Allen Hills region sublimes, it exposes all the meteors that have hit the ice over many hundreds or thousands of years. Meteor hunters literally drive around on snowmobiles and pick them up with tongs, never touching them to avoid contaminating them with human bacteria. They bag the meteors, number them, and record the location and any other pertinent facts about the meteor. That's how meteor ALH 84001 was found, the Mars meteor. Since Earth gets hit by about 17 meteors every day, over thousands of years the numbers add up. Almost everywhere has been hit by a meteor at one time or another. 11 years apart, 2 houses on the same street in Weathersfield, Connecticut, had their roofs punctured by 1-pound meteors. But only a rare few meteors ever come from Mars. 126 meteors have now been identified as coming from the red planet. ALH 84001 came from Mars. Scientists know this because the United States has landed on Mars and sampled Martian rocks and the Martian atmosphere composition. ALH 84001 contained the same gases as Mars' atmosphere and similar chemical composition as the rocks. But the meteor also contained something else, a fossilized life form. There has been much debate about whether or not the tiny object inside ALH 84001 is a fossilized bacterial life form, or rather a chemical deposit. But the studies aboard the International Space Station confirm that bacteria can live for a long duration in space. So it is entirely possible that some bacteria could make the journey to Earth from Mars in a meteor. The United States Mars Exploring Perseverance rover has recently found organic molecules inside Mars rocks. These organics are carbon and hydrogen. It won't be known if these organic molecules were produced by living organisms or merely by chemical reactions until the samples are returned to Earth sometime before 2030. The search for life on Mars is ongoing. But Mars is not the only place in the solar system that might have life. Jupiter's moon, Europa, is a good suspect too. Entirely covered by miles of thick water ice, Europa may have an ocean of salty water beneath its icy crust. Ice acts as an insulation blanket. Combined with possible internal thermal processes in Europa's core means that Europa's ocean water could be warm. The Europa Clipper Express mission plans to confirm conditions for life on Europa. Loaded with 9 pieces of observational equipment, the Europa Clipper will attempt to observe just about everything possibly going on by orbiting above Europa, including the chemical composition of the mysterious reddish-colored material that has ejected onto the surface ice from the ocean below. What could this reddish material be? Could it be a specific chemical mix? Or could it be krill, shrimp? fish, life forms like in Mobile Cave, or the ancient remnants of a bright side narrator? Stay tuned.
So, the Terra planet's location seems to be at these coordinates. Okay, let's go to outer space to see the situation. Is it me, or is something moving? Oh no, there's too many piranhas! Oh my, there's too many of them. Oh no, 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 no! Leave me alone! Wait, no! I have to get back to the ship! We need to find shelter, now! Just a little bit more. Now we need to push off in the direction of the ship. It seems they don't see me. Come on, come on! Come on, almost! Oh no, this is the end. No, no, go away! Huh? So you guys aren't as bad as people say?
You are waiting for your garlic bread in the oven. While looking up at the stars through your kitchen window, you ask yourself, could you send garlic bread to space? And more importantly, could you still eat it if it came back? Some mighty important questions. Usually, when it comes to garlic bread, there are only two things people care about. Do we want cheese on it? And, oh yeah, eating it. That mouth-watering garlicky taste combined with the soft warm bread. Okay, focus. How are we going to send the bread to space? Given that NASA's first space shuttle cost roughly $49 billion, I don't think they'll allow us to borrow a rocket ship for the day, since they may have, more important things to do. I know, it's hard to believe that some people don't take garlic bread as seriously as the rest of us. Don't worry though, all we need is a balloon. Not the kind of balloon we're used to being around at things like parties, where you're surrounded by pizza, burgers and bread buns, hot dogs and bread buns, and cake. I think bread might have too strong of a hold on me. Anyway, the kind of balloon we need is a weather balloon. A weather balloon is explicitly designed to reach high altitudes of up to 24 miles. It carries instruments beyond our atmosphere to send information on temperature, humidity, wind speed, and atmospheric pressure back to us. A French meteorologist, this guy, first started experimenting with them in 1896, and his work led to the discovery of the stratosphere. I wonder if he'd been proud of these balloons now operating as an extraterrestrial taxi service for our garlic bread. Maybe not, but I'm sure he'd be delighted knowing that hundreds of people worldwide today release these balloons for their own experiments every 12 hours. Most standard organizations believe that space officially starts at the completely arbitrated Kármán line, over 62 miles above us. Sending the bread into orbit would require a speed of tens of thousands of miles an hour. Without our rocket ship, which conventionally travels at a speed of 17,000 miles per hour, we won't be able to get the bread that high or to travel at that speed. Okay, no, you can still keep the rocket. I'm happy with my amazing weather balloon, which, by the way, will still get us a third of the way to space, bringing us to the area known as the edge of space. Given that the atmosphere up there is so thin, about 1% of the pressure at ground level, it's really not that bad of a substitute for actual space for this test. I was never comfortable with being over 62 miles away from my dinner anyway. So this works much better for my food abandonment issues. Ow, my ears! I can already hear you at your computer screaming, "What is this guy talking about?" I've seen videos of things like pizza being sent to actual space before, using a similar method. Why should we settle for the edge of space? Well, many cameras operating in those videos to document the object's journey use a fisheye lens. This lens exaggerates the Earth's curve compared to what it looks like at those heights, giving off the illusion that the camera's closer to space than it is. Glad we settled that. Unlike if I were to ask you which is better, pizza or garlic bread. Moving swiftly along, thank you. Now that we've got our weather balloon, to which we've reluctantly attached our garlic bread, the moment for takeoff has arrived. We launch the garlic bread to the sky and wipe the tears from our cheeks as we watch it disappear beyond the clouds. In comparison to a rocket, the pace of our balloon may as well be that of a tortoise, and it will travel at a speed of over 1,000 feet per minute. So, a good way to distract ourselves from the sadness of our bread's departure is by asking ourselves what the garlic bread's in store for during its journey. Well, in 2 hours, our weather balloon can rise above the clouds higher than the paths of jet planes, passing through the ozone layer in the stratosphere and reaching altitudes of 22 miles or higher. The balloon will endure temperatures as cold as minus 90 degrees centigrade, meaning we'd better have a microwave on hand should it make its way back to us. The balloon will expand as it ascends, from 6.5 feet up to 26 feet, because air pressure decreases as the balloon climbs higher in the atmosphere. What happens next would be a truly satisfying experience were my food not being put at risk as a result. Our weather balloon pops. And just like that, our garlic bread will begin the descent from the skies. Wind conditions dictate how far from the launch site the bread will land, but we can expect it to turn up no more than 75 miles away. As is the case for experiments with weather balloons, a parachute is attached to the cargo, which will help ensure the bread's safe return and a reunion with its best friend, my stomach. Some say it's a one-sided friendship. Even though it's this stomach of mine that's currently making animal noises from starvation. It's actual animals who now pose a threat as potential predators of snatching our dinner. Engineers have designed packaging for exercises like this, equipped with GPS and a servo. This packaging will close shut approximately 3,280 feet above the ground. It will protect the garlic bread from unwanted landing spots and the various jaws of the animal kingdom, dramatically increasing the likelihood of being able to eat the garlic bread if we can relocate it. In all actuality, weather balloons used for experiments like this are doing more damage to wildlife and nature than vice versa. Marine animals like turtles often mistake the remains of weather balloons in the water for jellyfish and eat them, thinking that they've just got themselves an easy meal. This is damaging for these animals, given the components of these weather balloons contain rubber and battery acid. Arguments have been put forth that weather balloon testing is ultimately another form of littering. If this video inspires you to try and send some food to space using balloons, keep this in mind. So, the hunt is now on, not for any wild animals, but ourselves. What's that saying though? Fail to prepare. Prepare to go without that fantastic piece of garlic bread that you've just launched into the edge of space, which you're now on your way to reclaim? Or is it just preparing to fail? It doesn't matter, as suggested by the parachute and protective packaging. We're doing neither. To ensure we could find the bread once it landed, we attach radio trackers to the balloon before launching it. These send a signal with a GPS position to the ground, which is then put on a map for us to chase, giving us a good idea of where the garlic bread will be found. Man, I love technology. And just like that, the moment has arrived. We've found our garlic bread intact. And after some moments of passionate hugging and loving strokes, I'm ready to take a bite. So, was the wait worth it? How's it taste? And can you eat it? Yes, you can. But the taste? Not that great, actually. And despite mentioning it earlier, I forgot to bring my microwave. The bread's been frozen from the frightening temperatures experienced on its journey. And I actually mean frozen. The bread itself has an icy middle. But before we can even discover this, we'll notice that when we go to rip a piece of the bread off, it doesn't tear as normal. Instead, it snaps off, as if we've just broken a piece off a twig. We can even hear the clicking noise. My warm, soft bread is no more. You'd be better off keeping this for dessert in the event you run out of frozen ice cream. On second thought, let's just throw it in the trash. Nonetheless, it's pretty cool that we were able to send this garlic bread to the edge of space and still end up eating it, right? Before I pass out from starvation, I'm going to the store to buy some more, which I definitely won't be sending to space. Why don't you let us know in the comments if there's any food you'd like to send to space for seasoning before eating?